Welcome, gentle listener. I am Baldermort, your faithful servant, and I wish to introduce you to the factions, forces, and faces of the Warhammer 40k setting, the grim darkness of the far future, where there is no time for peace, there is only time for war. And today, I now enter a brief period where I take a rest, regroup, and start writing even more. But I do need a break. Alas, I have the urge to do some personal projects in writing, possibly even a novel. So we'll be attempting that in my period off. No, it can't be Warhammer. But hopefully some will think it of worth, if I manage that first draft. A dream for decades, and I have few of those left, so best get on with it, as they say. You never know what you can do until you try. Hence, as usual, I will be releasing some compilations of my own wee stories to tide me over. YouTube can be a harsh taskmaster, and videos need to be uploaded continuously. So, in this period, I put out collections to paint or sleep with. I hope you enjoy this compilation for what it is, and I thank you, gentle listener, for all of your support over the year and years. You truly have changed everything in my life. Thank you. I can only hope that I have made some kind of beneficial impact in yours. Now, to the stories. Few can see, none truly know. Ulik can. I believe that Tarax can as well. My brother's truer than any who have the same genes floating around their forms. But this also is a good thing. I would not want the rabble to stare at me, to try to emulate me. It would be cruel, you see, as they would all fail, of course. So it behooves them to not even try. A stream of thought only, a dream. I return to the moment. Before us are the enemy, sons of the lion, dark angels. They tout themselves as swordsmen. I shall savour this, all of it. Ah, things were so different then, during the crusade, the heresy, as it would later be called. We were men of honour then, even the cravens who still clung to the tyrant, the emperor. And this memory over all others makes me miss those times. Oh, I could have wiped the small citadel from the map with orbital bombardment. I could have arrayed my artillery outside the range of their defensive weapons and pulled a Tarax Antarax and just blasted them into submission or annihilation. Most likely the latter, as the sons of the lion would not surrender any more than we would, should the positions be reversed. So there was always that, I suppose. I could have filled Spartans and land raiders, and thundered across the plains and smashed down their walls, and put them to the sword. I did not. I instructed my herald to walk across the plain under the flag of truce. And there, he conveyed my message, my challenge. They accepted, of course, as good little lions should. We arrayed ourselves for battle and waited. Then the doors to their modest bastille opened, and out they came to meet us, their pennants and banners raised high, fluttering in the wind. It almost seemed a pity to do this. Almost. And the two small contingents marched towards each other, kicking up dust and making a thoroughly glorious vision for all. I knew their numbers, so I did not take one man more. Not one. We had to beat them down. We had to prove that we were better than they were. I would have it recorded in my mind's eye for the rest of my life. Then I thought it might be short. So many dying in this war. Now. I marvel at the concept of fleeting mortality. Back to then, when we got to within a few 100 meters of each other, both sides began to pick up the pace and jog. Then we both broke into a run, and we clashed. I permitted the chaff to precede me. I wished to see where their hero was. He who had accepted this engagement must be given the gift of being slain by me personally. They deserved nothing less, after being such good sports. I surveyed the battlefield as our men engaged each other. The titanic clash of metal on metal as our lines met. It was like the chiming of cymbals to my ear. Pure joy. My men in the regal purple, theirs in the dour black of their order. Men died so swiftly on both sides. But there, I spotted a segment where they were not falling back, but pushing forward. In most regions across the field, my men clearly outmatched those of the lion, driving them back with skill and precision to match against their raw power. And on this day, as with many others, skill won out. I walked to the scene of their push, taking out 3 of them as my men fell back before a hardened knot of what were clearly the Dark Angel's best. No Death or Dreadwing were they, and certainly not of the Knight Cenobium, but they were decorated veterans nonetheless. The first tried to take my head as a man in front of me died. I almost nonchalantly sidestepped his blow, drawing my plasma pistol and discharging it in his face. His head melted satisfyingly. The next came at me with his power sword in a thuggish overhead swing. If he had struck, he would have cleft me clean in twain. I stepped in and grabbed his forearms as he brought them down. The blade did not touch me, and I twisted him, making him lose footing. He went down to one knee, and I then bullied the sword downward, so that his own shoulder took it. The slow cutting into him made his face contort in pain, but he never stopped glaring into my eyes as I ended him. I took his blade and threw it into the chest of the last to assail me, the last to stand in my way. He looked so dumbfounded as he stared wide-eyed at the power blade now jutting out of his chest. He toppled over and died, and my path was now clear. He saw me. His bodyguard wanted to surround him, but he simply shook his head and then raised his sword at me. An unmistakable challenge. I bowed to him, then walked forward, drawing my Charnabal blade for the first time in the fray. He was worthy of its edge. At least, I hoped he was. While all around were screams and bellows, pain and battle, in this moment, just between the two of us, there was silence. Neither of us spoke as we paced around each other in a circle. Nobody on either side would interrupt this duel, many stopping their own clashes to stand and watch. He was a centurion. He had earned me as his foe. As we paced, he changed his stance a few times to match my own alterations. I brought the sword up, seeming to prepare for the heron style, then dropped again into a tight grip, shifting into the wall of frustration. But I watched as we shifted once and then twice more, then I smirked at him the whole time. I raised my eyebrow, stopped pacing around, and winked at him while waiting. This worked a treat, of course. He grimaced at the insult and ploughed towards me. His blows were structured, skillful, and swift. I danced backwards and sniggered as I had taken his measure. Then I skipped a few times and brought my blade up at him in great swirling circular strikes, each building on the previous, a tapestry of movement that he did not see developing until it was too late. His last block came up high against my feint, and my blade went through his midriff, enough to hurt, but not to kill. I drew it out and sprayed his blood back into his very face. At that point, I think he knew. We both did. His clumsy, sparkling power sword was no match for my Charnabal blade. Even so, he knew that even if I wielded an exact copy of his own sword, the result would be no different. Resigned, he came at me again. This time, the parries and feints were faster from both of us, but the exchange was shorter, as I ended with my blade finding the tiny slither of weakness in his knee armor. I took a slice off his knee, and in the dead time it created, where he was shocked for an instant by the initial pain, I brought up my blade and cut off the tip of his nose. And there was now silence around us. His men were no longer shouting encouragement. My own men knew what was happening. Few enjoyed this display, even now. Over the next minute, I danced around him, taking off a finger, removing a slither from his cheekbone, slicing through his leg and then back to his head, taking an eyebrow. He took it all as heroically as any I'd ever faced. Yet when he lurched at me in one last attempt to run his blade through my chest, I took off his sword hand and tripped him. He was Astartes, but he was grievously wounded now. He panted as I kicked him over onto his back and put my boot on his chest. Looking down on him, I took in every aspect of his face, now a bloody and brutalized thing. And before his men, I simply lowered my Charnabal blade into and then through his neck. With their lord gone, the fight went out of them, and the rest, that was just mop up. I, Tarax Antarax, have to admit that I don't enjoy reunions. Lots of puffed-up egos, preening, slander, bickering. It's all pointless. It's why Ulik and I always got on. We only spoke when there was something to say. Hexamon was always a bit more wordy, Emperor's children. He liked the sound of his own voice. Well, before his situation changed. But even so, he was more pointed than most, more tolerable than any others. But I also have to admit that I am looking forward to this particular reunion, one I have arranged for a certain small outpost world that needs to be removed. Ulik is thorough, you see, as much as I am myself. It's the only way to run a war, really. Oh, the charges and screaming, bashing in skulls and vaporizing people is all well and good, where the blood is high and you're standing on a mountain of dead slain by your own hand. But those are the glory moments. That isn't the war. Battles are not wars. And when it comes to wars, I am pretty darn good at them. It's all about bringing the right cudgel to smash the right heads, really. Which means you have to get your grocks in a row before you fire the first shot. There will always be moments when chaotic ambushes or turns in fortunes mean that you have to get in there and break things personally. But if you are doing it right, these are few and far between. And I have brought exactly the right nutcrackers for this particular fray. This outpost is protected by the forces of the corpse god, as some like to scream. Old golden boy sycophants is how I put it, because I recall him in his prime. But he's dead, really. We all know it. They refuse to see it, but we know. He can be claimed to be sitting on a throne on terror as much as they like. But he's gone. All that remains is a skeleton and his psychic power. And in front of me are some of his mewling weaklings. Tempestus scions, or some other gaudy epithet. When did they become so stupid in their naming conventions? Scions, indeed. They call themselves the elite, but I'd wager a single regiment of solar auxilia would tear them a new one. Besides the point I get. They sit behind their walls with their slightly oversized las guns, taking potshots at our ranks. Extreme range. They do nothing. They must believe we are scared of the assault. What an insult. We are hanging back to watch. And there it is. The landers come down, and out walk a dozen or so of my favourite toys. Mechanicum all in black behind their wall of metallic hate. A reunion indeed. As I reintroduce the so-called warriors of the Imperium with the pride of the Legio Cybernetica. I am told none who now breathe have witnessed their power. So this is going to be side-splittingly funny, as Hexamon would say. And they march. With their little people behind them all controlling, a line of them strung out equidistant, so any mistakes do not consume more than the one who had an accident. But that doesn't happen. There will be no errors today. They walk ponderously but purposefully forward, into the shower of light that comes from the defences. Las gunfire sears the air, but none of it impacts. The adamantic shielding lights up like eggs of invisible force, as the Thanatars appear more like tanks walking through rain. One shield does go down under concentrated las cannon fire, but they can barely scorch its armour before the shield goes back up. And then the Thanatars are in range. As one, the massive plasma mortars on their shoulders all swing down and lock into firing position. And as each of the huge robots moves forward, huge balls of plasma sail from their lines into the fortifications. Plas steel and rockcrete melts and sizzles. Pillboxes are hit, smashing everything around them, but they provide no real protection. Those structures, not melted, have every gap or slit used as an ingress point for the plasmatic fiery death. Fire burning into the bunkers, vaporizing everything inside. And then the Thanatars get in close. All 12 smash into the curtained wall and use their graviton rams to bring it down. It takes less than 2 minutes of them all pummeling the walls before they go down in huge breaches. And with that, the outer defences are broken. I hear my men cheer as they raise their bolters into the air, attaching their chain bayonets, and then charge to the breach. Within hours, we will be in total control of this place. I will leave a small garrison, mostly servitors and scum. Then we move on to the muster. Despite it all, I will enjoy this one reunion myself. It has been a long time since we three spoke face to face. Ulick will put on a display, for the others, of course. But I do look forward to seeing him again. He always made me laugh. I never thought I would get this chance. But now, I am not so certain this is the chance I wanted. We stare up at the walls, the guns, the men in grey armour who stand silent and searching for our move. It is night, of course, but you would not believe it. The sky is burning with light, reds, oranges, whites, as Balder, Plasma, and even Phosphex sails over our heads. The anti-aircraft fire weaves thick red streaks through the air, causing plumes of red and orange to erupt above us. I look down the lines in both directions. My men huddle under cover, shuddering with a mixture of adrenaline and tension. Pure anticipation. For this will be our first true engagement. Oh, we've fought before, but that was clearing out semi-abandoned locations with only skeletal defenses. This is the one. This is the target. This is our time. We know we are not considered true warriors yet, despite the hours of training, the surgery, the mental conditioning. So many of us died on the slab under the knife. So many more went insane at the psycho-indoctrination, the speed at which images rushed through our minds, like a tidal wave that smashed all that was, all we were, and left the dregs of experience from someone else behind it. I know things I have never experienced, never been taught. Sitting in that chair, it was torture. But it gave us the skills to do this. We knew that all of the processes had been sped up. We gained the bare minimum to be effective. But what choice do we have? All of us. The traitors are still here. They who turned their backs on their lord, the Emperor. They who turned their backs on their very own race. We need to chase them down and wipe them out. All of them. Fine words defining worthy and righteous intent. But now, when I look up at the fortifications, they are just words. Strange. I do not know fear, but I can understand what is about to happen. My men do not. So many of them are dull of mind now, after the process. But still, they are eager. For we wear the war plate of the Astartes. We have their organs, their power, their strength, their speed. Yet the others subordinate to me do not really understand. We do not have their experience, their skill. My men think we will storm the breach and tear the vile traitors to pieces. And they are right to think so. For have I not myself stated this? It was what they needed to hear, to make them charge these walls, to climb these defenses. Filled with the power of the enhanced Space Marine, they feel unbeatable. But those defenders are also Astartes, also Marines, but they have had the tutelage of 100 battles, 1,000 engagements besides. Those are veterans in there. No more time, no more thought. Now is the time for action. I see the glyphs appear on my heads up. I stand and raise my arm over my head. From either side, my men all look to me. A full 100 Astartes. I see the chevron appear, and the whistle goes off in my comms. I bring my arm down to point at the walls, and I draw my sword and raise it high. My men all rise, and then I drop the sword and bellow the one word. Charge! And we are off. Right behind me, the standard bearer holds the company colours, blank save for a number, 223 at its centre. When we have won glory, it will be reflected in our banners. Or so I was told. I did not have the heart to tell my men what I noticed about them. The latter two numbers are stitched. The first number is painted on. They added that one to differentiate us. I wonder how many times this blank banner has been carried into battle. Why it remained blank. No time. No thinking now. I run. We make it all the way to the walls before they truly open up on us. My men think that they are inept. I can see that this is to cause the maximum effect. And damn them. It's effective all right. Scything beams light us up from above, and then the death begins. Pinpoint accurate holes appear in men left and right. The headshot that explodes lenses, and these men with a hole in their front, an explosion of helmet, brain and skull erupting from them as they fall. Huge flowers of red and orange appear amongst the men, melting some, cooking others inside their power armor. Even in this, the greatest protection known to mankind outside of tactical dreadnought armor, the foe have weaponry that slays us as if we were wearing cotton. I take action. We cannot stand here. I command for the melter bombs to be used. Sergeants push forward and place them at key positions, those who are alive at this point. They're snipers. They have taken 1 in 3 of my officers already. The banner behind me has been picked up 3 times now. Each time its bearer shot out as he rose, collecting it from the mud. I do not even turn to try. I care nothing for that rag. I care for my men. Our bombs go off, and we have a few ingress points now. I bellow more simple orders over the Vox. Not that I really need to. The men are desperate to get inside and get to grips with the defenders. The push costs us dearly. The enemy sees us cluster at the entry points and use this to gain additional carnage from their weapons. If I order the men to spread, even more will die, or their morale will break. We have to eat the pain. It is all we can do. I rush to one such ingress point myself, and my bodyguard attempt to form a shield around me and the 5th standard bearer now. We finally make it to the hole, and have to step on the carpet of our own dead to get inside. And there, things are worse. I watch as more of my men come in and charge at hardpoints set up directly in front of us. How? How did they know where we would place the charges? But they seem to know. And their heavy firepower cuts my men to pieces. Las cannons, heavy bolters, fragmentation grenades land amongst us so thickly it is like rain. They slay few, but make communication and thought impossible. And so, my men charge. There's nothing I can do now, even if I could think of anything. All is screams and explosions of fire and death. The lines before me torn asunder. I am now near the front, and I raise my sword again high and lead to the charge. 2 of my bodyguards hurl themselves in front of me as the defenders keep up their incessant firing. But we get to them. I leap over the barricade, and I put my power sword to good use. I sweep it forward and take the head off my first enemy. I then roll forward and bring it into the torso of another, watching as a discharge from it electrocutes and melts the internal organs of my foe. And then I curse. For these are not the iron grey-clad Astartes. These are servitors. We are being slaughtered by servitors. Then they begin to pop. When they can fire no more, when they are surrounded by my men, someone somewhere is watching, and they are detonating the servitors, each one taking at least one of my men with them, sometimes many. The confusion is absolute, and then the ground rumbles. I am unbalanced, we all are, as perfectly aimed shells strike our area from within the fortress, and those of us not slain are knocked to our knees or flat in the mud. They continue this pounding as their snipers fire again and again, taking the heads off everyone rising. I can see our own stragglers, those nearest the gaps in the walls. They are running. The shaking now ends, and doors open in defences just before us. Out pour the true foe. Marines in grey, with yellow and black markings on their shoulders. We are unbalanced, pinned down and sliding in the mud. They hit us like an avalanche. I try to rally those closest to me, but none can hear over the shouting of the enemy. They dance amongst us like we are overgrown children, their strikes so clean and economical, their abilities factors beyond our own. Then, as one of their sergeants cuts through my remaining guards, I realize they are not screaming war cries. They are not bellowing their fury. They are laughing. They are laughing at us! I raise my sword in salute, then pounce forward, thrusting with it, and I barely saw him move. He just appeared at my side. He did not teleport. He was just so confident, so skilled. I did not see him move. An explosion of pain in my midriff. Blood erupts from my mouth. He lifts me up on his sword. All I can see is my men. They're being slaughtered like children. This is no battle. This is an execution. As I die, I lose my sight. and all I can hear is his laughter. In the command section, but 2 miles away, Praetor Lucullus barked to his staff. "Report!" And the centurion nodded and responded. The 233rd Company gained the first perimeter, but was repulsed. Heavy casualties. "What's left?" barked the Praetor. "They sustained 73% casualties, sir." The Praetor nodded. "Pull them back and rest them until they merge with the remainder of the 2nd and 3rd waves." "The remainder?" "We will likely break through with the 4th wave." "And if we don't?" asked the centurion. "Then we take the newly formed composite company and hurl that in too." "Those are Marines down there, sir." "Sort of," stated the Praetor. The centurion stopped looking at his screen and glared at his commanding officer. The Praetor noticed and matched his junior with a steely look. "Did you think this would be easy? Those are iron warriors in there. They were built for this. For siege defense, forget the 7th. The 4th have always had something they do not." "And what, sir, would that be?" said the centurion. "Spite." The Praetor then returned his vision to the screens before him, tracking the battle as it progressed, as hundreds of chevrons moved forward, and then quickly went dark. The Praetor nodded again. "We break in on the 4th wave, if they try hard enough." "Those are our brothers down there." "They are Marines." "No, centurion. They are inductii. What comes off that battlefield may be Marines. Eventually." The Dark Commune. Lord Kaiserion looked out upon the fruits of his labour. His arms wide in exultation, he ululated to a multi-hued sky. Where clouds should have been, there were reflective lakes, clearly exhibiting to all what was happening on the planet's surface. The background was not blue. They were now rippling waves of every colour, known or imaginary. The sun beamed down through it all, but its white rays now blasted down almost at random, like a child holding up a magnifying glass. They burned and blasted anything the beam struck. Stone walls burst into flame, people were incinerated in seconds, and the demagogue looked down and laughed. The streets, carpeted by the screaming, writhing, running and fighting masses, the gutters ran with blood. It was pandemonium. All repressed urges were released, all scores being settled, and all augmented by the blessings of the dark gods, their emanations striking the population like a direct assault on their very core, their belief, their inhibitions, their control, all washed away. The city had fallen from within, as planned. Lord Kaiserion was the 5th of his name. This had been a plot long in the laying, longer in the hatching. For hundreds of years, his family had been spreading their slow tendrils across society, had spread what the ecclesiarchy would call a taint. Heresy. It all began when his great-great-grandfather had been in the Guard, the Astra Militarum. He had been a leader of a regiment on the front. He did not speak of what he saw out there, but he did bring back spoils of war. Much was sold off, elevating the Kaiserian line mightily, yet not all. He passed down what he had learned from the scrolls, the most precious of things that became the heirloom of his family. For they spoke of secret forces in the universe, beings that were both kind and benevolent to those who offered to reciprocate their love. Each generation built upon the knowledge and experience of the last, and the clan expanded and was blessed with abundance and plenty and fecundity. In 4 short generations, they had gone into marriage alliances with most of the minor, then on to many of the major houses of the nobility. Their rise was meteoric, and all of this was due to their secret benefactors. For now there were hundreds of them performing the rituals, a not-so-secret society of consanguinity. The latest head of House Kaiserian had taken command of the family when his father's blood was being guzzled by a summoned Burning One, cunningly slipped past his predecessor's defenses, as was the new tradition of succession. It had seemed so long ago, but this was a scant 2 decades only, and the change in leadership brought a far more brutal regime, one that would bring the cult to its ultimate goal: control of everything and everyone on this planet. Finally, the word had been given. The sacrifices gathered and prepared. The rites and circles checked again and again. All across the planet, the rituals were being performed in unison. 999 thralls were used in each of 9 sites, 1 on each continent. Most expected the change to be immediate, but they were not the initiated. Kaiserian used the time to coordinate his forces, place them in key positions, and they waited. 9 days, 9 hours, and 9 minutes they waited. Dusk was its beginning, and the madness was begun by a distant scream in every mind on the planet. Some welcomed it, those of the blood and their cultist networks. Others were driven instantly mad, the floodgates of unfettered emotions and impulses unleashed. The whole populace fell upon each other. In the confusion that followed, the cult assaulted the 2 places that could pose any real threat to them: the command HQ and staff of the regiments, and the temples of the imperial cult. Well-armed, coordinated, and led, the insurgents swept through them with ease, but still, the bloodshed was ghastly. Some of the ecclesiarchy remained immune to the mind-warping effects of the curse, but they were overwhelmed. The cult now controlled all organized forces, the only ones who could operate while the madness unraveled the minds of near all others. Of the thousands who had lived and preached, a bare few hundred clerics were taken, often because of the zeal of their captors, but not exclusively. For some of the faithful had been terrible in their capabilities. Some had circles of death around them, but no man can stand against a tide of foes forever. Atop the highest balcony, Kaiserian stood, basking in his total victory. He smirked as he now grew bored of simply watching the carnage unfold. He turned, his guards now preceding and following him, one in front, one behind. Tall, clothed in black robes, armored and with wicked weapons on their backs and hanging from their belts. They were his enforcers, his hands, his fists, his blades, his shield and anchor. They never left his side unless he expressly ordered it, but this, of course, was very rare. Kaiserian barely acknowledged they were there. Even inside his own mind, they were never even a second thought to him. Like the sight of your nose whenever you open your eyes, they were a part of him, his existence. Kaiserian stepped into a great hall, one of the upper regions of the cathedral of the God Emperor, in this, the capital. Before him were 100 of them in neat lines, heads down, bruised, bleeding, but alive. Each on their knees, of course. The clergy. Those who had been taken alive. Those who had stated that they had seen the light. Surrounding them at the walls and behind them in force were the mob. Cultists armed with stubbers and chain blades, if they were of reasonable rank. Others had standard-issue lasguns taken from the Imperial Guard armories. Many stood in their uniforms, but with their tattoos and other sigils of faith on display now. Kaiserion took the simple steps up to a pulpit and addressed the captured priests. He sneered down on them. Disheveled and beaten, their finery could still be seen. Soft clothes and full bellies, but hearts as empty as their heads, mused Kaiserion. He despised their weakness. And so he began. The Great Ones are ready to accept you into their hearts. But there are unworthy traitors amongst you. Only when you have been purified may you pass the test. The hall beyond you is where wonders can be gained. Kaiserion pointed to the central room behind some ceremonial curtains, the place where only high clergy could go prior to this day. There you will find true purpose. You will find a truth beyond anything you have ever experienced. You will find complete fulfillment. But you have impure amongst you. Only when the righteous remain will you venture forward to your destiny. Kaiserion then took out 2 swords and hurled them to clang before the kneeling priests. You all know what must happen. You do. So do it. Striding down the stairs, and then flanked again by his blessed blades, Kaiserion walked towards the curtains. A priest shrieked and scooped up one of the blades and ran towards the demagogue's turned back. He did not get within 5 paces of Kaiserion, as his bladesmen turned on their heels and easily blocked his clumsy blow, and beheaded the priest with ease. The severed head bounced, then rolled to land before the kneeling 99 that remained. Then 2 leapt up and clutched at the swords, but turned them on those around them, not towards Kaiserion. And within moments, the slaughter began. At the curtain stood a man holding the icon of the Great Ones, a diabolic sight of twisted bones and silently screeching faces, all atop a banner of purest gold. And at its bottom, a man holding the great icon. Although man was a loose description, he had not had a face for many years. His arms were more tentacular than hominid. It rasped from a hole in its neck as it bowed to Kaiserion, the demagogue, as he passed. It straightened and followed him beyond. Are there traitors amongst them? Did you see this in the fires? Kaiserion snorted and chortled, then retorted as they both walked on. They are all traitors, my lord. Of course, they once prayed to the corpse god. They have seen the light. But who's to say they may see another light when our backs are turned? They are fickle. No, they must be leavened, purified by pain. The Iconarch nodded. They then proceeded to another similar area. This time, the high clergy. The bishops and cardinals knelt. They had been captured, but they had not been forced to repent. They merely awaited judgment. Kaiserion now clicked his fingers, and a being without a mind shambled forward. The will of Kaiserion, the only thing that gave it impetus, animation at all. The will of Kaiserion. For in its grasp, it had a long, wide rod with a bulbous top covered in a black veil. Wires stretched from its veins into the rod. Kaiserion reached the head of the hall and turned again. His Iconarch and blessed blades beside him, the animated black-clad thing before him, between the demagogue and the high priesthood. He smiled at their wide eyes, their sweat-drenched faces all looking to him in anguish, yet none moved to challenge him. None. Kaiserion raised both his arms in the air, fists clenched, voice booming. Now, you who have crawled on your bellies to a weak and feeble being, You shall pay the price of your infamy. Witness the power of the true gods." On the last word, he brought both fists down in a fluid, furious movement, and the shambling thing before him then wobbled, and the cloth came off the top of the rod. There was a head, misshapen and bloated, but eyes had moved of their own volition, sentient and menacing. Then those eyes began to glow, and from them tore a wave of power that swept forward. It struck each of the clergy and twisted them as its light passed. Each now writhed and screamed, if they had a mouth anymore. Sickening sounds of cracking rebounded around the room as their frames twisted and shattered, eyes popping and teeth growing to hideous sizes, flesh boiling and peeling back from the sinew. The score of clergy died under the ever-shifting mutations that tore through their bodies. Those who lasted longest left the most pitiful moans as their last testament. Kaiserion watched this all with a twinkle in his eye. It seemed to take a very long time. He enjoyed the moment as he heard the clangor of battle from the other room subside, and one man dragged himself under the curtains, bleeding from every limb, leaving a red wake of blood as he did so, barely holding in his intestines and from a severed and ruptured stomach. Kaiserion walked to him and loomed above. He then knelt down and took the sole survivor's face in his hands. "I always knew it would be you. Now, you shall witness splendor like you have never known." And Kaiserion then blessed the man. The dark gods brought their bounty, and his wounds knitted. His blood seeped back into his form, which now contorted and shifted into its new visage. Stronger, taller, more potent than ever before. This last man of 100, whose lips were now sealed shut, his eyes closed and his ears increased in size and sensitivity. Kaiserion let go of his head and took his arms and drew him up. This would be a fine warrior, another addition for his blessed blades, should he prove able. At least, he had now proven he was loyal, for he did not just leave his blood back in that outer room. He left his soul there, now and forevermore. Mind, body, and soul. He belonged to the dark gods and their envoy, Lord Kaiserion. And Kaiserion would need him, for now that the enemy had been bested, now that the world was theirs, Kaiserion knew he would have to eliminate every last one of his line, and of course, any others who tried to step into their shoes to try to challenge him. Kaiserion was the demagogue, and he would not relinquish this crown easily. Hunted. They whirl above me, riding the skies on the wings of bats, with blazing fiery tails. They come down and steal one after another of us, swooping down and snatching men or women by hand or foot, scooping them into their clutches and away into the darkness. They are not even alone. Things seem to lurk in every shadow, taking those who attempt to hide from the flocks above. They are hunting us. They cull us like we are cattle, and they are laughing at us. Xenos, they hate us so. What did we do? Why? What hell is this that opens its gates and lets them walk amongst us? Where is he? Where is our God now? For all my life I have given praise unto him. When my mother died, I did not mourn her. I was too busy in my duties. The lighting of the candles, the litanies recited, while I burned through my years, cleaning, tidying, bowing, and scraping. I served, for I believed the ancient prayer, the Emperor protects. Why hast thou forsaken me now? I break away from the crowds charging down the corridors or walkways of the hive. I avoid the shadows and keep to the light. Yet, in my travels I find a door ajar, a warm fire within, a hidey hole they might not have found, might not investigate. There are so many of my people running, so many victims for the horrors to sup upon, to play with. The entire hive stretched out before them like a banquet. I sneak inside, aware that even my own kind might be as terrible a danger as these darkling beings. If I were to reveal the hiding place of another, why would they not take my life to protect their own? When I pad inside, the room is empty. All that remains here is a half-consumed meal, a dying fire in the hearth. Whoever was here either ventured out when the klaxons went off, or has already been taken by these things. I close the door quietly but firmly. I breathe out only when I hear the latch close within the frame. I have no doubt the enemy could make bits of the door, could find me if they so chose, but there are so many playthings for them to feast on first. Even my own mind knows the truth of the matter. I am not safe. I will never be safe again. They will take us all eventually. Do they intend to eat us, or merely revel in our slaying? I close my eyes as I weep. I do not know. Perhaps I should take the blunt knife from the table and somehow end my own misery. Swifter, safer. I do not know what these Xenos are doing to us. But the Emperor despises the weak. He would never forgive me for taking that which he gave me. Never. So I must endure. I must hide. Maybe they will pass me by. Maybe they will get bored. Unlikely. My eyes flash open as I twist and look around me. There is no one there. They are getting closer, states the disembodied voice. I can barely breathe. My heart plays out a drumbeat I feel can be heard for blocks away. I shut my eyes tight and wrap my fingers together in a supplication as I stumble over litanies and psalms. The words blend together and become nothing more than gibbering as I hear the voice again. He will not hear you. He will not intervene. But I hear you. I know what this is. Sent to tempt me, the enemy. My words stop, my head comes up. I am not alone. Despite that I fear for my soul, the voice somehow comforts me. How? I cannot understand. I speak more calmly, shedding words into an empty room. The demon? And there was me thinking you were mentally defective. Save me. No. I have nothing to gain from it. I cannot understand. I am speaking with a devil. Yet my fear remains most pungent for those outside this room. Could they be worse than a devil? Perhaps. What do you want? I say to the emptiness. Entertainment. But you will not play with me. You cannot pay the fee. I hear one of the bat-winged things swoop above this hovel. I hear its fire. I panic. What do you trade in, demon? You know. Everyone knows. Panic building, as though the Xenos can hear it speak with me. I now rage. Why so coy? Say it, demon! I cannot. All who come to me must do so willingly. There are rules, even for one as mighty as I, especially for one who can grant heart's desires. Chills. I do not know which are stronger. The ones that flood my mind and slash down my spine, raising every hair on my head, my back, my arms. Yet the fear of the Xenos is real, more palpable. It comes from my stomach, irradiates from within me, making my teeth chatter, my bones chill. I take deep breaths, attempting to calm myself. My teeth stop at the least. I control myself as best I can, as I attempt to show a slither of courage in the face of the impossible. That a demon of legend comes to bargain with me. Now of all nights. But of course, it would be now, when I have nothing to lose but my life. I know what you want. I know what I want. And I also know your sort. You must be a gambler extraordinaire to become so mighty amongst the lords of chaos. It laughs. Say on, mortal. You intrigue me. I would have you make a deal with me. Yet, if I would wager something so important, I expect a chance to regain what I gave you for a time. I do not loan people power, little mortal. See it as a challenge. Can you outwit me? It laughs again. A wager I will take. Speak a pact of your own devising. First must be the prize you want, then the details, then the payment I will receive. Speak the rules into existence, and if you speak true, our pact will be made. As simple as that. The world blinds you to the truth. Your beliefs blind you from true reality. In matters of the soul, little mortal, things are always simple. Speak your doom into existence. Speak the pact. For an instant I demur. I shiver again, but I hear them outside. They are coming closer. More of the bat things swing over this place with each passing minute. They will find me. They are coming for me. I breathe in deep. I steady myself. I attempt to hide the fear from my voice. And I begin. I wish to leave this place and be taken to somewhere that nobody else can harm me. I will then live, and you, demon, will give me the chance to earn back that which I gave you in payment for the salvation. A test of your devising, but one within my capacity to perform. This test will not rest on knowledge, skill, or ability that I do not already possess. And if you do this for me, I cannot believe what I am about to say. I bite my lip to steady myself again. The taste of iron is my own blood. Yet I recall how it flooded from those taken by the Xenos, so it rained down from above. I breathe in deeply and in tone. If you do this for me, I will pay you with my eternal soul. The entity laughs, but as it does, the world becomes thinner around me. Like all colour and light is being washed away, everything becoming dimmer. I am nowhere. I can see and feel nothing. I have the sensation of movement, but no input from skin or hair or eyesight that proves this to be the case. My eyes shut, but when they flicker open again, I am surrounded in a fiery light. I look behind me, around me. I am stood in an open corridor with torches of wood blazing. I can see it is curved, yet at an angle so slight that it proves this place is huge. I am overwhelmed. I begin to laugh, and I cannot stop. I can hear myself, of course, the fear now gone, making it maniacal and almost unhinged. I have lost everything and everyone I ever knew. But I am alive. I have survived. Then the voice returns. Now it is time to pay your dues, little mortal. What of our pact? I cannot break it, even if I wished so. You are safe now. Somewhere nobody else can harm you. And what of the deal, the test, so that I might regain that which I paid to you? Our wager. That is so deliciously simple. Even you can fathom it. The test is this. Catch yourself. If you can do this, I will immediately free you and send you on your way, soul returned, body intact. And as I am a fair being, a just being, I shall even give you the opportunity to switch places every now and again. But if I know that all I need do is catch myself, then why would I run any more? Why indeed? Farewell, mortal. As his derision echoes around the corridor, I see at its furthest end what can only be me. I walk towards myself, but my copy now looks at me with horror, as if I were an apparition from the pit itself. And he flees. I give chase, sprinting as fast as I can, but never making the distance between us contract even by a hair. He is me, and I am him. We are equally fast. I presumed that my ire, my desperation, would give me the edge, yet I cannot understand this, for I run as if being chased by all the hounds of hell. And on it goes. I lose all wind, I stop, and so does he, eyeing me warily over the distance. I regain energy and pretend to slump against the wall. Then, without warning, I sprint at him again, not running, but putting in my oar. I pick it so fast that my legs ache, my lungs burn. I run and I run and I run, yet I cannot catch him. And on it goes. I now have to wipe the hair from my eyes as I chase after him, him, and on it goes. Nights and days are indistinguishable when you are underground. The torches, though made of sticks, never seem to burn down. Whenever I am exhausted, I stop and rest, sometimes even sleeping, forever hoping to rise in time to catch him unawares. Yet, when I wake, so does he. And off we go again, running, running, running. And on it goes. Then one day, or is it night, beyond all fatigue and despair, I shout as I run. "Demon! You promised me a chance! You stated I could switch!" And there, after all this time, the rumble of laughter erupts again into my mind. "I am surprised you held out this long, little mortal. I am a just being, so this I shall now do. Sleep again, mortal, and when you awake, your positions shall be switched, as I had promised." I slow and stop, then fold in on myself and smile. Now is my chance. When I awake, then I shall walk to myself and be caught, and by doing so, I shall be freed. I awake. Cold ground beneath my body fires on walls, lighting an ever-extending corridor. I rise, standing tall. My body aches, so I stretch. Yet when my arms come down, my eyes open wide, and I look both directions to be sure. And there, in the distance, a heap of hair and sinew wakes some 200 paces away, and something tells me I should walk towards it, try to help it if I can. The urge is so strong. But as it now lurches up and runs, closing the ground between us, it charges at me. Deranged, triumphant laughter echoes from it. It is emaciated, all hair and bones, no flesh to speak of. It gets closer and closer, and I see its grinning face. Behind a huge long curtain of bedraggled hair, a skull with paper stretched across it. Teeth drawn back as if it had never eaten before, yet retained the properties of a killer. And there, its eyes, empty of any reason, remorse, or sanity. Its orbs now reflect a desperation that knows no depths, a hunger I could never fill. Nothing could. I feel I should still wait for it, but I cannot. It is appalling, its fingernails so long like talons, its hair so matted, as if it has dwelt here for decades. But its eyes... I cannot help myself. I know I should stop. I should not do this. But I cannot help myself. I start to slowly walk backwards, shrinking from it. It now howls in consternation, a bellow so pitiful. It is as if all of the pain of the universe were scratching away at its innards, released through its throat in one preternatural howl. And I run. It charges after me, now screaming insanely, anger replacing woe, and I cannot help but double my pace, to sprint off as if my life depended on it. For surely it did. And with each pace, I can see the distance between us lengthen, and the howl from the monster becoming ever more frustrated. And I run on, and on, and on. I have been Baldermort, your faithful servant. If you have enjoyed these stories, then do consider liking and subscribing, and tipping with a super thanks if I've earned your bounty this day. There is a link to the patron in the video description also, if you feel that generous. But more importantly, now, no matter what you do today, do try to make some time for fun. Toodaloo.